Next up, it's our weekly segment Movie Spotlight, where we review the latest cinematic releases at the Korean box office and online. And giving us their honest and expert views on the films are our critics. First, we have Jason Bechervaise. Jason, hello. It's good to see you.
Yeah, hello. Great to be here.
And across from him, we have Marc Raymond with us here this week as well. Marc, hello. It's good to see you too.
Good to see you.
Okay, so one local and one international release today. Let's start with the local one. It's an action comedy called Woognami. It has the same title in Korean, and it features Park Sung-woong in the lead role, in a dual lead role, actually. Jason, what can you tell us?
Okay, this movie is atrocious. I'm just going to say that right now, and I'm going to have fun tearing it apart. But yeah, it's the directorial debut, feature debut of Park Sung-kwang. He's quite a famous, established comedian. He's worked as an actor in several films, quite small roles, including Nameless Gangster. He made a short, actually, called Not Sad So Sad in 2017. And the film centres around this character, or characters, played by Park Sung-woong. You know, familiar face in Korean cinema, OK Madam, Swindlers, Office. And yeah, basically this story is so weird. And so one character is a bear turns superhuman called Woognami, and the other is his twin brother called Bok. Both of whom are separated at birth.
So you said bear turned a superhuman.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's weird. And basically, one of them is a cop, and the other is this gangster. And the thing is, Park Sung-woong has played these two different he's played several different characters, but often his persona is quite serious, quite formidable character. And then on the other side, you've got his kind of more comedic, kind of cute character. I mean, Ma Dong-seok's done a similar thing. And so you've got these two personas coming head to head in this movie. And according to the director, it's inspired by the Dangun myth in which a bear turns into a human after eating garlic and mugwort for 100 days. And so the movie also stars Hae-ryun, Cho Min-soo, and Oh Dal-soo. So there you go.
Yes. Okay. So when we say the Dangun myth, it is in fact the founding myth of Korea, about the founding of the nation. But Marc, Jason's already told us what he basically thinks of the film.
Yeah.
It sounds rather bizarre. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it's always hard to judge these kind of the comic aspects of these movies. I always feel like maybe this isn't for me, or I'm missing some things.
Right.
But
perhaps lost in translation, you mean?
Some things for sure, and then definitely I can say on the filmmaking end, it's very badly made. That's definitely true. And like the action comedy aspects, yeah, maybe I can't. Definitely the action stuff is very bad, and the comedy aspects. I mean, I was kind of thinking as I was kind of suffering through the movie about kind of examples of like movies I make, like comedies I like that are also maybe I could tell, okay, it's not a very good, like very well made movie, but sometimes a comedy is still enjoyable if you like, the performances or the script or something about the comedy. So maybe I was like, well, maybe this could work for somebody if it was. It's not working for me at all, but certainly at the level of filmmaking and even like the performances and everything, none of that was enjoyable in my opinion. But again, I don't think I'm the target audience, so I'll give it. I'll qualify that way. But yeah, definitely in terms of like and you could kind of tell this was maybe not a director who has experience. If you told me, he's like a comedian turned director, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's not very well, because I've seen there's Korean comedies out there that I didn't quite like, maybe didn't love, but could at least recognize were well crafted, well made. Maybe I'm missing something in the humor isn't translating completely. This one, that definitely is not the case. It's not well made.
It's really sloppy. I mean, the lighting is it's just really badly done. There's a scene in a parking lot. And first of all, I thought, okay, maybe this is like, for the, the aesthetic. And actually, I was like, no, there's like no consistency in the lighting. And the editing is really sloppy, especially in the kind of the fight sequences. And yeah, the acting is not very good. There are like around about 4 writers accredited for this rubbish. And basically, I get the impression, because this comedian is clearly, he's quite well known. You've got some big names in the film. There's a Jong-il-sung cameo, and it's almost like they went out one night and it's like, well, let's make a movie together, and let's bring all these kind of actors along. And yeah, it doesn't work at all. It actually attracted some controversy because a critic was very critical, understandably, and I hadn't realized this. I was looking online after I'd seen the film, and I think some people have come out to support the movie and the comedian, which I understand, but the underlying issue is the film is really, really bad, and there's no defending that. And I'm sure those involved in it know that. And I don't like to kind of, when it comes to reviewing a film, sometimes you can enjoy tearing it apart, but
right.
But I understand that that there are a lot of people involved in making a film, and but still, this is really bad. It's rubbish, and I think it should be called out as such. So there you go.
Oh dear. Okay. So that was Woognami. I think we can leave that film there.
Yep.
And move on to our second film. Hopefully it's a bit better, seeing as it is from the legendary Hollywood filmmaker Steven Spielberg. Okay, so this is the critically acclaimed The Fabelmans. It's playing here in local cinemas now. It's simply called The Fabelmans in Korea, or Pavelmans. It received 7 Oscar nominations, of course, although it didn't win any in the end. It was considered a Best Picture contender at one point. Mark, can you tell us more about this one?
Yeah, this is, of course, everyone, no introduction yet to Steven Spielberg. This is now his, depending on how you count, 34th feature. And this is clearly his most autobiographical. This is a movie, kind of a slightly fictionalized, of course, but really drawing on his own childhood, and especially his own budding kind of love of cinema and his growing kind of mastery of filmmaking. At least a good part of the movie is about that. And it's also about his parents and this long process of separation and divorce that his parents go through his childhood, which, if you've seen Spielberg films, you kind of know is a theme that he's dealt with many times. Here he's kind of confronting it kind of head on and kind of directly. And so it follows the family's journey from New Jersey to Arizona and then eventually to California. And it kind of ends with Spielberg kind of entering the lower levels of the Hollywood industry. And it stars Michelle Williams, who was nominated for Best Actress, and also Judd Hirsch was nominated in supporting. Paul Dano plays his father, Michelle Williams' his mother. And there's also a supporting role for Seth Rogen. But the lead, who plays basically the Spielberg surrogate as a teenager, is a relative unknown, Gabriel LaBelle, who I thought was maybe the most impressive performance in the film, and that at least holds his own with all these veteran performers.
Interesting. Okay, so Jason, Steven Spielberg, obviously one of the most popular filmmakers ever, and he's always included certain personal themes, especially around childhood and divorce, in his early work, such as E.T. How do you think this perhaps more directly autobiographical film tackles this material? Are there any differences from his other works when he finally deals with this subject matter more head-on? And of course, did it work for you?
The film did work for me. I really liked it. It's quite an intense film. I wasn't expecting it to be as intense as it was, particularly in the second half. I've grown up watching Spielberg, watching films such as E.T. and Jurassic Park as a child, and even films like Saving Private Ryan. He's been such a big part of me growing up loving cinema. So I was really curious about this film. I tried not to read much in terms of reviews, and sure enough, it did surprise me in ways that I wasn't expecting. Looking at problems, in this particular marriage, his parents, and yeah, it just gets really intense and psychological. And so, yeah, the acting is terrific. And, as you'd expect from a Spielberg film, it's so beautifully crafted, great score, beautiful cinematography. And it's just, I found it gripping. And I don't think I'll ever view films made by Spielberg, both the ones he's made and the ones he makes in the future. I don't think I'll ever see them in the same way.
Wow.
Because he really, it's deep. Clearly there are issues there, and it's really honest. That's what really surprised me, in that I guess there was some criticism that it was narcissistic, and I guess if you could see it in that way, but at the same time, I really respect his honesty, because these are issues that are not easy to deal with, and I think he's the only one that could really grapple with them in such a way that it really resonates on screen. It certainly wouldn't be as good a film had someone else made it. So I really respect his honesty. I really like the film, and I'm still processing it, to be honest with you. And it really kind of goes into his childhood. It is autobiographical, but it's those years before he started really making films. Yeah, he's making films as a child, but this is before he made Jaws and before he ultimately transformed Hollywood.
Mark, this is going to be an interesting tidbit for our listeners, I think. I understand that you're not actually the biggest Spielberg fan. Controversial.
Yes.
Perhaps you can tell us a bit more about why you're not a fan of the films, but also, most importantly today, what you thought of this film.
Yeah, I like this film, and I do like Spielberg's films. But when I say I'm not the biggest fan, it's like, well, there are people who think he's the greatest filmmaker of all time, and my opinion isn't that high, I guess, and that's why I've always when I'm asked about that. And this one, Jason mentioned the narcissistic element. That is, I did find that slightly off-putting, because it is a movie that is about him basically saying, I'm obviously a genius. Look how much of a genius I was. But if that's kind of part of I kind of almost kind of respect it in a way, because at least it's no false modesty. He's basically saying, yeah, I'm really good at this, but this comes with a cost, and this comes with like this, I can't really relate to people as maybe like I could if I wasn't so obsessed with art, if I wasn't so obsessed with filmmaking. And so he's kind of dealing with that, right? So I guess I kind of, and it's a movie I've thought about more, and I kind of like a bit more after watching it. I did find, like, the performances, as Jason mentioned, they're very good performances, but I did find it a little bit almost distancing at times, just because he's dealing with his own family history, but it does feel a little bit removed. It's almost like he's proving the point of the movie, which is that if you're an artist, you almost distance yourself from that kind of thing. And I felt a little bit of that. That's why I found like the performance of the actor playing him was the one I found most affecting, because that felt like the one where maybe he was most connected to, because again, he cannot get out of his own kind of head, right? His own mindset. Right. And that's where his emotion lied. Even in making this film about his family, it really is mostly about himself. And, you might find that off-putting, but it is. I kind of almost respected the honesty, as Jason was saying.
He looks like him as well, particularly in like the final kind of few minutes of the film. You can definitely see kind of a young Spielberg.
Perhaps a film for film lovers and Spielberg fans?
I think so, for sure, yeah. I think if you are... the filmmaking sequences, because he does make films from a very young age as a teenager, a lot of those sequences are really great. And there's like the most famous sequence of the movie is where he makes a film and kind of, I don't want to spoil it, but there's like a revelation made through the making of a film, which is a really dazzling sequence and the type of thing that Spielberg does extremely well. He's always been this great craftsman with movies.
Sounds fascinating. Okay, we'll have to end it there for this week's movie spotlight. Jason, Mark, thank you as ever for your time and your reviews, and we'll catch up with you again soon.
Take care.